the hospitality industry, social media in the hospitality industry, it's not just a trend. It's like the megaphone that turns whispers into roars. I still come across hotels and restaurants and cruise lines that are just the people handling the social media. It's not their full-time job. They have 15 other job responsibilities. Social media falls last, and you can tell. So what you're telling me is social media is powerful enough to help take over an empire in a country, but not powerful enough to sell a hotel room or a dinner or a cruise. Like, it's astounding the way people think. It's unbelievable. A third of the world is on social media, but it's not important enough for you to provide a full-time job. It blows me away.
Welcome to the Bountiful podcast, where we explore what it means to live a bountiful life. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Scott Eddy, a world traveler, top travel influencer, and digital entrepreneur to the show. Join us for an insightful conversation with this global adventurer. Scott and I share a special bond, not only as friends, but we're also fellow travelers who are passionate about seeing and understanding the world. Over a decade ago, our friendship started online on Twitter, and in a serendipitous moment, we met when I walked into a bar in San Francisco, and there he was, in the flesh. The power of the internet to connect to like-minded people who might have never met otherwise is truly incredible. Our journey with Scott is a tale of resilience, exploration, and digital transformation. Born and raised in South Florida, Scott's life took a dramatic turn after losing his father shortly before graduating high school. This pivotal moment led him to a career in investment banking, but his true passion for travel and human connection eventually guided him on a new path. Scott has traveled to over 85 countries, living out of a suitcase and immersing himself in diverse cultures. He founded the first digital agency in Southeast Asia, gaining deep insights into the digital transformation of various industries that were sweeping the globe. Now, as a top travel influencer, he turns storytelling into ROI for the travel and hospitality sectors, sharing his adventures with his global audience. That audience spans over 1.1 million followers across his channels and has done for a long time. I think it's safe to say that Scott is an OG when it comes to all things digital and social media. In today's episode, we'll delve into Scott's journey, exploring the profound impact of losing both of our fathers at a similar age and how this shaped us in unique ways. We'll discuss our shared love for travel, the role of experiencing new cultures and living a bountiful life, and the lessons we've learned along the way. We'll also explore the evolution of Scott's digital brand, the challenges and rewards of living a public life, and his insights into current travel trends. Scott, welcome to the Bountiful podcast.
Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be here. Finally, we finally got there. Yeah, we've been talking about it for a while.
I mean, you're a hard man to pin down.
Well, I always know where to find you.
This is true. In my hermit hole in New Zealand. So I guess the first most appropriate question is, where are you and where are you going next?
Right now, I'm in South Florida, probably about an hour north of Miami in Deerfield Beach. And I'm here for another 4 days. And then I fly to Spain on Saturday. I'm speaking at a conference next week.
How many cruises have you been on?
Cruises, I just did my 115th cruise. Not all for work, because when I was growing up here in Fort Lauderdale, we're in the cruise epicenter of the world. So it was a big part of our family travels when I was growing up. So yeah, I love it. It's an easy way to travel. People ask me now, because they see me cruising a lot. They ask if I only do cruising and I only work with the cruise industry. No, it just happens to be what's popular right now. Like, post-pandemic, cruising is very, very popular. In my opinion, more than it's ever been.
Why do you think that is?
I think that cruising allows you to see more places in a less stressful way. Now, when I say that, I mean, when you do a normal trip, you have to plan out, okay, get your flights. And when you get there, what do? You take an Uber, you get a car, you have to drive yourself, or you have to set up a transfer. Then you got to get hotels, and then you have to worry about your activities every day, your food every day, this and that. When you go to a cruise, you basically fly to the ship, and then that's it. You have stress-free travel. You You unpack once, the countries come to you. And it's just, even if there's an issue with the port, they seamlessly find a way to, reroute, and you do nothing. It's not like you're up there helping logistics. Your logistical plan is nothing.
You're sitting on the pool deck drinking Mai Tais.
Exactly. Coincidentally enough, one of the first times I actually worked in the cruise industry was with Azamara, and I did a New Zealand intensive, and I did a 27-day leaving from Melbourne and then Tasmania, and then 17 stops all around the North and South Island in New Zealand.
New Zealand is a special place, although rough seas maybe slightly?
Honestly, I don't remember. It was 2016. It was nothing that's going to stick in my head. I mean, I remember how wonderful it was much more than how rough the seas were.
We digress a little bit, but the only time I've been on a cruise, I did one from Australia with a friend of mine around some Pacific Islands, and we were stuck between two cyclones for the whole trip. And so, I mean, I don't really get seasick, but the swell was so bad that we were like, the boat wouldn't get into like motion of the waves. Yeah, but it was a good time still. We still had lots of margaritas, and then they ran out of seasickness medication, so they were handing around green apples all the time to everyone, because apparently it's like there's like a enzyme in green apples that are anti-nauseous or something. I thought that was an old wives' tale, but it turns out it was totally true.
No, it's totally true. And also ginger. So you'll also see people chewing on ginger. Anything ginger related, it calms your stomach down. Yeah.
We can get all those tips and tricks from you. We're on the Bountiful podcast. What does it mean to you to live a bountiful life?
My definition of bountiful would mean, what does it mean to live a happy life? A life where I make decisions on happy clients, happy trips, happy whatever, versus just doing it for the money. I come from the investment banking world where it's all numbers. You're as an investment advisor, you are a number. How much money you raise is a number. How much money did you make this month in commissions? That's a number. And you're valued as that. You're not valued as a human. So I'm in an industry now where I'm surrounded by wonderful people all around the world. I make friends all around the world, and it's wonderful. So if I can wake up happy, do happy work, and go to bed happy, that's the most important thing in my life.
And I mean, your life is definitely very interesting and probably different to a lot of people, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Sort of based on that, I guess, not wanting to be a number on a spreadsheet, how do you see yourself now in your like post-investment banking world, kind of living the dream by most people's standards? But yeah, how do you see yourself?
Hopefully, I leave a good impact on the people that I meet and the people that I touch, whether it's through social media or in actual human interactions. Because at the end of the day, I use social media and everything that we do on the phone to get to this, to get to the real life relationship, something that you can see, feel, and touch. And, it's really the most important thing in my life is my relationships and everything like that. Business comes and goes, as we saw with the pandemic. Everybody went to zero, but your relationships, they seem to power through and be there. Real ones. The fake ones fizzle out with their own steam, but the real ones stay.
And then I had a question here around relationships, like how so many people's relationships are predicated on them being in one place. How do you forge relationships and then also maintain them when you're kind of moving around a lot?
It's really hard because I did a post about this the other day on LinkedIn. And when you live a nomadic lifestyle, and, I travel aggressively, and I sold everything I owned 10 years ago. I literally live either on cruise ships or in hotels every day of my life. And you make friends very fast, but you lose friends just as fast. And it takes a lot of energy and focus to stay in touch with people. It's very, very difficult when I meet somebody who is not active on social, because then it takes a whole different types of energy to stay in touch with that person, because it's almost impossible. But you know, I do have some friends like that, but it's a lot more work than normal. But yeah, it takes a lot of focus, and I try my best, but I don't punish myself for not being able to do what I absolutely can't do. I just do my best every day, and it is what it is.
Can you tell me what it was like selling all of your possessions and like what went into the decision behind that? Because that's like liberating but terrifying at the same time, I think.
So I thought it'd be terrifying, but the following day was not any different than the day before I decided, because the stuff was never with me anyway. Like I travel all the time. Like what do you do? Like seriously, like a vase. Like what do you like something ridiculous? Like people hold on to the most ridiculous things in life because they're things. Things don't make you who you are. You know, I learned that when I was in investment banking, and you know, watching guys make 100,000 in a month and then going out and blowing it on a car. But okay, when you park your car and you walk into whatever, your house or a restaurant or anywhere, you're still just a person. Like, okay, the people saw you drive up in it and they see you drive away. But other than that, you're still a person. You still have to be yourself, unique. So, I mean, things, I don't miss it at all. Like zero.
On that note, like you've met so many people, like more people than a lot of people, because you're just always, I guess, around people in a way. Is there people aren't defined by like what they have, they're defined by who they are and how they treat people, I think. Is there any threads or themes around like the most interesting people that you've met on your journey or in your life?
You know what's funny is, so I meet two types of people. I meet them in real life, but I meet a lot more online. Do you know the first thing I do when I meet somebody online? You know, I do a little digging, who they are, how often they post on social media, who our mutual friends are. But I really look at their post, you know, and let's just talk about Instagram just because it's the platform right now. I look at their post and, you know, say they did something, say they posted something yesterday or a week ago or a couple days ago, whatever it is. I look down to see if they respond to comments. So for me, that's the ultimate test of showing manners. Like somebody took time out of their day to comment on something and you don't respond. It's sort of like walking by somebody in real life and them saying, hello, how are you? And you just keep walking. It's like astounding in my mind. It makes my head explode. The first thing I do when I wake up is reply to every comment that came in overnight. It's so important in my life. I can't even tell you. It's crazy. So that is the first thing that I do. And you know, whether it's right or not, I judge people by that. So, you know, I look for kindness traits and being nice traits all over, you know, whether we're in real life and, you know, watch how we meet somebody in a hotel and we're having a drink in the lobby bar. How do they treat the servers? How do they treat the bartender? You know, like just how they treat other people. It makes a big deal. It makes a big difference to me.
Yeah, I love that. Actually, you know how I post my cocktail videos on Instagram?
Yes.
Obviously, you're doing very well. I'm just starting. Sometimes I get the recipe wrong or something, or it's a variation. And so then people will be like, you're not making it right. And then I reply and I'm like, oh, you know, I'm just here to learn, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh my God, you actually replied. Like, I didn't expect that from you. Well, yeah, you don't need to be mean, but of course I'm going to reply. Like, I'm just, you know, here trying to figure stuff out like the rest of us.
Yeah. It's, you know, like there's also a strategy for brands. And you see them do it every once in a while, but do you know, because there's so many keyboard warriors in the world, you know, there's actually a strategy that you should upload something and either say something wrong or in the captions do something wrong or in your written caption do something wrong. You will get 4 times the amount of comments because there's so many keyboard warriors that calling out your mistake. So if you ever want to boost engagement, so it's a strategy. It's kind of a backhanded strategy, but it's a strategy for business. And it works every time because, you know, people harp on the worst. That's why news channels do so well because they highlight the negativity.
I wish we were a little bit more positive in the world.
I try.
So can you tell me a bit about your background and how you came to be one of the top social media influencers in the world?
How I became one of the top is kind of weird for me to talk about. I mean, honestly, I think it just happened because I was early and I'm very active and I just put a lot of emphasis on activity. I think that having an account that's dormant does no good for anybody. My father's side of the family, I'll tell you about like when I was little. My father's side of the family, they're all from Michigan and they're completely blue. And what I mean by that, everybody's a police officer. My uncles, my cousins, whatever. And my dad was a Michigan State trooper and I was born in Michigan. And we moved down to Fort Lauderdale when I was 3 and he became a Fort Lauderdale cop. And I spent a lot of my childhood in middle school and high school going to the police station after school and hanging out and going on ride-alongs and, you know, all the cop things. I took a driver's license test in a police car. I watched interrogations, autopsies. I mean, the whole thing. I had a date to join the police academy 6 months after I graduated high school. And 3 weeks before that, my father was killed in the line of duty in a plane crash and turned my world upside down. Which is why I in my head, why I'm not afraid to take big risks now, because the worst thing in my life has already happened to me. So now, like, what's my downside? The worst thing cannot happen again. It's impossible. So I didn't want to be a cop after that. And my friend in New York called me one day. It was probably a few months after I graduated high school. And he said, listen, I have a couple friends that are moving down there from New York and they're in the finance world and they're opening up an investment banking firm. And I was like, well, like, that's not for me. I don't know stocks. I don't know finance. I'm bad at math. Like, I was a horrible student. I said, I need to find something else. And he's like, you have no downside. You have no upside. Like, just go to the orientation and see if it works out. So I went, I was accepted, and I was like, I just gave in. I was like, okay, whatever. So I went to the training program and I was in investment banking for 10 years. And, you know, that's where I really learned. The real thing that you learn is how to sell anything to anyone. And that is the best skill that I probably could have learned. So I'm grateful for it. And then 10 years later, it was January of 99. They came out of the office and said, we just sold the firm. If you show up on Monday, you're going to have new owners. And I resigned as well as half the firm. And the guy who was sitting next to me for many years, his best friend was an expat who was working in Bangkok. And every time he used to come visit, we used to hang out, drinks and dinner, and became really good friends. And he always used to tell me to come to Thailand. Come, it'll change your life. You'll love it. I'm here with my family. You'll die. And I was like, listen, I work 100 hours a week. I can't take a 24-hour flight. Basically what all my friends tell me now. I went that Sunday. I bought a 2-week ticket. And after 4 days, I called my mother. I said, I'm never coming home. I love this place. And I ended up living in Bangkok for 11 years. I did nothing for the first probably 5-6 years. I partied my butt off all over Asia. And then social media came out. And however big you think social media is in the US, just because it's the epicenter, in Asia, it's on steroids. Like, you have people there posting 8 times a day. I mean, it's just insane. So I was definitely one of the first, definitely on Twitter. That's where it all happened. I was probably first 2,000-3,000 people on Twitter, and Twitter was it back then. And I was very active, and there was no such thing as the word influencer. There was no such thing as personal brand. There was no such thing as pay to play. Hey, let me come to your hotel, send out a few tweets, and I stay for free. There was like, they would have looked at me like, are you crazy?
And like working remotely back then, being a digital nomad, even blogging, all not really things back then.
What, you were an alien. So blogging industry really blew up at the same time in Bangkok. And so I had a lot of friends who are huge now, but back then they were just starting out and they're like, what are you doing this social media? You don't own your audience. You don't do anything. I'm like, I don't know how to write. Why would I blog? I'm like, I'm all in on this. And they were laughing at me and it was unbelievable. So as I started to grow and grow and grow, so I was the first American expat in every Asian country to have 1 million followers on Twitter. And that got me like front page news back then because it was like a thing. Then when that got me all the newspaper articles and interviews and things like that, then I started getting speaking engagements and just things started to happen. I started the first digital agency in Asia and we were the biggest for 5 years. Not because we were the best, because we weren't, just because there was no competition. And all our clients were hotels. That's when the first wave of crazy hotels entered Bali. That's when Western casinos entered Macau. That's when Marina Bay Sands opened in Singapore. I mean, Asia was really blowing up and we were at the epicenter of it. So after 5 years, I got sick of, like, I couldn't understand. I had an office. I had 37 full-time employees. And I was like, this is like ridiculous. This is all I'm doing is putting out fires every day. And I'm paying this enormous salaries every month. I'm like, I sold it. I'm like, I'm done. And I'm like, I'm getting enough buzz off my social media. And I didn't even know what it was that, okay, I'm just going to bounce around. So I ended up in total living 11 years in Thailand, 1 year in the Philippines, 1 year in Sri Lanka, 4 years in Spain, 1 year in Portugal, 1 year in London. And I guess we met on Twitter sometime 2013-ish, something like that. And then I came back to the States in 2015. And for the first year, I was based in San Francisco. And that's where we became 4D friends, not only 2D.
I love that. Yeah, that's just so interesting. Like when was I was traveling around Asia, like Southeast Asia, probably 2012-ish, around then. And like, I still remember, I like to joke that I started using social media when it was a toddler and now it's like a full grown adult and whatnot. And like blogging, I loved blogging back then. And I don't know, being remote, like I've remote worked my whole life. And then COVID was the thing that everyone was like, oh, you're not an alien anymore. I'm like, damn it, why didn't I keep going?
I've been doing meetings in hotel lobbies for years. Like, I don't know what that was. People are like, oh, this is so cool. I'm like, yeah, I've been telling you for 10 years.
You're like, just do it from anywhere, but no one believed you. Everyone was like, no, you can't be productive. Of course not. Which, so boring, such a boring conversation. Like, are you productive or not?
It just goes to show you that people follow the herd. It wasn't until the herd started doing it and they started talking about it publicly that people weren't afraid to do it anymore. It's ridiculous.
I have a question here where I'd love your view on how different the world was when it was pretty nascent, like the social and travel world, when you were building out your channels. Maybe you've made the decision to build out your channels post agency land. What was it like then and how is it now? Because I think, social's kind of taken off in some crazy ways, mainly because of startups trying to, I think, innovate on how we connect and the different technology has allowed new mediums to come to light, obviously like video, the internet, smartphones, etc. Makes me sound like a dinosaur.
I look at it this way. Honestly, I have no opinion. And the opinion is I love it. I loved it back then and I love it now. The thing, I think people, they put their hooks into whatever side they want to be on. Oh, the internet's horrible. Okay, let's look at that. There's 1 million people out there saying that. The internet's wonderful. There's 1 million people out there saying that. So, I mean, just pick a side. I think it's wonderful. I think it's fantastic. I've built a $1 million business off of the backs of it. I'll tell you one thing. I've never pitched anybody in my life. Like if somebody asked me for an actual proposal that like looks pretty, like they would be in for a huge shock. All my businesses is opted in. All my businesses, hey, can we have a chat over DM? And then we hop on a call and like figure out how to do it. Or I post a beautiful video on LinkedIn or Instagram or Twitter or whatever. And they're like, hey, I want you to do this for my client. That's how I get business. So, I think it's a wonderful thing. I love the fact that it's mature. Um, I think that I do not think that it's saturated. I think it's saturated with bad content, but I think if you're unique and have good content, I don't think it's saturated at all.
I put an Instagram story up to the Bountiful audience to be like, hey, do you have any questions for, world's top travel influencer? And someone was like, does he, partake in stupid viral trends? And I was like, I can tell you now, no.
I did one trend my whole life, literally one trend, and it was the Ice Bucket Challenge to raise awareness for ALS. But, that was something I did it with friends, and I put wine in the ice bucket, and I did it in Portugal with my friends who own a winery. So it was like fun. But yeah, I did one trend my whole life. I absolutely refuse. I love these articles that come out. 7-second videos is what's going to make you go viral. Give a shit about going viral. Viral gives you publicity for 5 seconds, and then what? There's zero ROI. 99.9 of those people will not follow you. And if they do, they're not going to care about anything else that you post, and there's zero ROI.
Do you kind of look at it like a ledger? Like I kind of look at it like a ledger, and that's, what my partner Mike thinks as well. He's like, you're not posting to get all these instant likes and whatnot. What you're doing is trying to build a relationship with people. And if people stay and they like you, then you're starting to build your relationship rather than just, I don't know, jumping on trends. What's all your thoughts on that? And do you have any words of encouragement?
Yeah, so I definitely don't hop on the trends. And my thought process is I love long form stuff. I don't mean 30 minutes, but I'll never post a video for 10 seconds. I don't care what the trends are. Listen, when Facebook comes out and says, this works well, they're saying what works well for them to run ads. They don't care about your success. They just want people to stay on the platform so they can run ads. So I think people make a huge mistake when they focus on their content strategy. I want people to know who I am and what my brand is. And I would rather, I don't care if, so right now I think I have 405 or 406 on Twitter or on Instagram. If all 400 drop off the face of the earth and I have 5,000 followers that really care, that's all that matters to me. I don't care. The numbers mean nothing. Yeah, my content has definitely so that's another thing. Let me just backtrack. The thing that's in right now is people archive old stuff and they just keep the best hits. Are you crazy? I want people to see when I was horrible. My first post is still there. If you scroll down, you will see the worst photography, HDR filters. It was terrible. But that was me. At that time, that was me. The biggest compliment somebody can give me, and I know and I respect Mike 1,000,000%, so I know where this is coming from, but the biggest compliment that somebody can give me is they followed me for a bunch of years before, or even a few months, whatever, and then we meet in real life and they say, wow, you're exactly the same as I see on your videos. That is the biggest. I don't need you to say you like my videos, my editing, my photography. I don't care about any of that. Tell me that I'm the same on and off screen. That means the world to me.
So we both have a deep passion for travel and have lived out of suitcases for extended times. How has this sort of lifestyle influenced your perspective on life and human connection?
I'm much more picky on who I let in my inner circle. I have less tolerance for garbage, and I have zero patience for just stupidity. I will block and unfollow somebody quicker than anybody you know. There's just no room in my life for negativity. Backtrack to when I was growing up. You heard about my father's side, but my mother's side, and I was extremely close with my whole family. I still am with my extended family. My mother passed as well, but my mom's side, both my mom's parents are from Lebanon. And they moved to Jamaica to open up a business. And my mother and all my aunts and uncles were born in Jamaica. So I was raised very, very like in a tight-knit family, whatever. But my father was very positive and very optimistic about everything. My mother, the sky was falling and everything was bad all the time. I'm going out with my friends. Oh my God, don't get in a car crash and die. I'm going here. Oh, like just the sky's falling all the time. So because, my father was working and my mother was always home, I was around that more. And my first thought with everything is a negative thought. It's just, I always quickly reverse it and turn it into something positive. That's why I'm a very optimistic, positive person. So I just feel that that's so important, and just being positive. I mean, listen, when you lose a family member in a plane crash, a close family member, you go two ways. You go, my sister, it takes her a lot to get on a plane, and she's a nervous wreck the whole flight. I want to fly as much as I can because I feel it brings me closer to my father. It's just, however you look at it, it's the same situation. It's what do you focus on?
I actually, going back to what you said earlier, in the same with life, where when my dad died, I was like, well, that was my worst case scenario. What can happen now? It really propelled me forward, I think, to just do whatever because you can, and almost like you have to, in a way. Feel like sometimes you feel like you're living life for the both of you in a way, because they didn't have the opportunity to live out their full kind of, potential is the wrong word, but kind of like full existence in the fullest way that they probably would have.
I get this question a lot, and I'm sorry to just jump, but it just popped in my head. People always ask, what's the coolest place on the planet for you, and what's the coolest trip you've ever done? Honestly, the coolest thing I've ever done traveling, and I don't think I've said this publicly. I've said it to friends privately before.
Exclusive.
When I was in Thailand, listen, in Asia, a lot of things are pay to play, and you can bribe your way into any and out of any situation. So I made friends with these top level army guys, and my dad did 2 tours in Vietnam. So I did some digging and some research, and I got some people to find out where he was based. I actually went to Vietnam and I walked the grounds where he was based. That was actually the coolest thing I've ever done as far as traveling. That meant the world to me. And there was no posting, there was no pictures, there was no anything.
For an entirely different reason than people would expect, right? Which is so much of life.
Yeah.
My next question was actually, what are some of the most profound experiences you've had whilst traveling? So we can tick.
That's number one, easily.
Do you have a second most profound experience that you've had?
So my sister has a very normal life. She's married for 25 years, 26 years. She has a daughter. She's lived in the same house forever. They work, just a normal life, very opposite to me. Anytime I get to do anything travel-wise with them, it's always very cool. It doesn't happen that often. I've done a few things domestically with them. We're still trying to work out something big overseas, but it doesn't always work out that way. But one time, I think it was 2017 or 18, Disney contacted me, and they're like, hey, we want you to, first off, I am the wrong person for them to contact. They work heavily with like mommy bloggers and people with kids, obviously. So they contacted me and they're like, hey, we want you to help promote the private VIP tours at the park. And they're like, you could bring your wife or your girlfriend or whoever. And I'm like, I don't have either, but I could bring my sister and my niece, and let's go. So we filmed a video there, and she was like, she grew up like going to Disney like 10 times a year. So that was really, really, really special just to see how happy they were. I do cool stuff all the time, so I'm sort of immune, but it was really, really cool to see how happy they were that day.
What does it take to wow you now? Because you see cool stuff all the time. What are the things that make you just go, wow?
I have to be with the right people. Because when I first came back, and I get a +1 pretty much everywhere I go, but when I first came back, I did a lot of trips on my own. And now it's easier because if I go to like, especially a big city, I normally have friends there. So it's easier. But back then, I'm doing a lot of trips. Probably for the first 3-4 years, I'd say 80% of my trips were by myself. And I do very few trips on my own now. I travel with my friend Chris, who's like one of the top hospitality photographers, and we have a blast all the time. So he travels with me 90% of the time now. Only if I'm going to a conference like next week, he won't go, but most of my trips he does. Like there's nothing that can be planned. It has to be just a good experience, having some drinks or going for a walk or in a really cool place, but with the right people. There's no one thing, there's no one thing, we were just in Hawaii and that was awesome. But Chris's wife travels with us every now and then. She has like a full-time job, so she's normal. She can't travel like us psychos all the time. And, but if she was there, that would have made it even more special, like little things like that, but it's always about the people. It's never about the thing.
They say that the trick to living a long life is to surround yourself with great people, right? Social connection, relationships. What would you say brings you joy?
Being around optimistic people. The negativity online, I get asked a lot. The negativity online doesn't bother me because I just scroll past it. It's highlighted by people and the news and whatnot, but it all is all based on what you like. Stop engaging with the negativity and you'll stop seeing it in your search feed. Like it's super simple. You go scroll slow and you're reading all the politics posts and the war and this and that and whose side you're on and, this shooting and that shooting. Well, guess what you're going to see? Like they know you're scrolling slow. They know you're liking it. They know you're commenting. Like, come on, engage with good. It's super easy to make your feed good. Engage with good.
That should be a slogan.
Yeah. It's easy.
I think I know the answer to this question, but what practices or habits have you developed during your travels that you think others could adopt to enhance their daily lives?
When I see people travel, and I spend abnormal amount of time in airports and in hotel lobbies, and I just sit there and watch. So I'm obnoxiously early everywhere I go. So it's not uncommon for me to show up at the airport 3 hours early, even though I know it's going to take a half hour to get in. I'll do calls or whatever, but I can't stop moving. So I'm always like pacing around and just watching people. The way people act when they're traveling is unlike the way they act when they're home. People think like they're on holiday, so like everything is off limits. Like if you just act the way you act at home, if you act normal at home, when you're traveling, I think the world would be a better place. It's just, again, it's just be nice, be kind, do something for someone else that it's impossible for them to repay you. Like hold the door open for somebody, what I love to do when I'm traveling, and I see it all the time, like, especially when I'm in like tourism places, like if I'm in London or New York or downtown Miami or whatever, and you see people like struggling to take a photo. Like I love going up to people and asking them if I can take a photo because it means the world to them. They probably saved up all year just for that one holiday. So I always try to put myself in their situation, especially when I'm traveling and when I'm talking about a hotel or a cruise or a destination, whatever it is. I always try to put myself in the traveler's shoes, not my shoes where I do 30 countries a year, in their shoes. Like what would be important to them doing one trip a year? And if it's a horrible trip, like all that money, they work so hard for that money, you got to make it special.
I've never regretted $1 I've spent on travel, ever. Even though it used to be a lot, like I've never regretted a cent.
It's even more now.
Yeah, the experiences that you have, you just can't buy, I think. Related, how do you stay present and fully experience the moment? And maybe there's a lesson in this for people when they do travel. Like I find sometimes people accidentally wish their experience away because they're focusing too much on like the next trip, or they're like they finally get their big holiday, but then they're not present, or they're thinking about something else. So how do you stay present and live in the moment?
I listen, I take tons of photos, tons of videos. I try to post in real time. So a lot of people, and I get the question a lot, when do you just enjoy a trip instead of posting all the time? Like, why don't you post after? I feel that it's my most authentic self to post in real time, because that's when I don't plan out captions and like what I'm going to do. I just go out there and do it. And I think that's a lot more real. But I do, enjoy every minute of every trip that I do. And how do I do it? I don't know. I don't have an answer to that. There's no secret recipe for that. But I think it's important to schedule your day where, listen, I wake up at 5 a.m. 7 days a week, no matter where I am. It's super, super important for me to be awake during the sunrise. Like, I'm out on a morning walk, and I don't mean I need to see the yellow bulb pop up. I just need to be out there during the sunrise. I could be in the middle of a city and I don't even see the sunrise. I was just in LA. There's no sunrises, but you see the glow coming up, and it's just nice. The day's beginning. It's impossible to have a bad day if you start your day like that. That is the most important thing in my life.
This morning, when I was just about to jump on this call, the sunrise was like probably the best we've had in like 3 months. And I took a video for you because I'm like, I have to send this to you. It's like, I'm going to be late, but I'm going to take a video of the sunrise for you. I know it's important for you.
It's so important.
You're completely right. Like, there is nothing that can go wrong in a day when you start the day like that. Do you have a world view? Or like, how do you see the world? Very broad question, I know.
I tell you, my worldview really changed when I moved overseas. Because when you grew up in the US, it's like, you're growing up in the country that, forget about who's most powerful, who's most powerful. There's always going to be the top three. It's just, you put them in a box and juggle, whoever side of politics you're on. But, you grow up in the US, it's like getting a PhD in marketing. We're the best marketers in the world, sales, we start most of the trends, music, movies, TV, all that stuff. So, I would say the average American is entitled. They think they're superior to the rest of the world. And I didn't really have an opinion of that, but I knew it was there. And then you move overseas to, like, when I moved to Thailand, it was 99. It was really developing. Like, you can call it third world, developing, whatever it was. The Bangkok metropolis that's now, it was not that way in 99. So, I moved to a city where you've been to Bangkok, correct?
I actually went to Bangkok in 99.
Oh, wow. So I don't think people realize how big Bangkok is, but you could fit like 5 Manhattans inside of Bangkok. It is a massive city. I mean, massive. So, I went over there, and it's one of the reasons I decided to stay was just everybody's warm and kind and friendly. And like, even if they can't speak English, they just try. It's crazy. I found people, like, I'm looking at like a map, or I'm trying to get somewhere, and they're like, grab my arm and like leading me there. It was unbelievable. I've never experienced that before. And it just, watching the US from the outside looking in, changed my views a lot. I noticed the arrogance in our country and just the entitlement a lot more. And you don't realize it until you're looking from the outside in. And don't get me wrong, I love it here, and I love, the people and the country and whatnot, but it just changed my mind, where I put kindness on a much higher pedestal when I was living overseas than I did before. Even though I was raised very, very strict, and having manners and showing people respect was very big in my household, but it means a lot more to me now.
Do you know what? We were reading some research the other day, and apparently please is no longer a popular word in the American vocabulary. Isn't that wild?
Manners went out the window a long time ago here.
When I went to Bali for the first time, I think 2012, very different Bali from more Indonesian from what we have today. And I maybe was a little bit entitled or whatnot. And I had a boyfriend that actually spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia. And he turned around and he was like, you should try to speak the language. And I was like, why? I think I was 20, so I was still pretty young. And he was like, because like you should just like want to be part of the culture, not just like, just be here. Like it's not just holiday, just try live here. And he didn't speak English to me for like a month. And he was kind of like, excuse my language, but like, fuck you. I'm going to, teach you a lesson so you can try and basically stop being a brat. And so then I do have a little bit of a natural affinity for languages. So then I taught myself Bahasa, not like fluent or anything, but enough to get by, and then got better than him, which was so great. But it really taught me a lesson. And then I kind of adopted that wherever I went. I then tried to, especially if I was there for a little while, would try to learn some of the local language, because the moment you try in any of those places, the response you get back from certain cultures is like kind of overwhelming in a way, because they're like, wow, you don't just see me as a person who's like, part of your holiday or giving you a service or something. You're actually trying to engage with me on a human level. So I did that with like, with Thai, with Indonesian, with Swahili, like all of that stuff. Yeah, it's so cool. Outside of kindness, you have kind of answered this, but I'm curious if there's more. Like, do you have any tenets or principles that you live by?
Just be nice. Give. I'm definitely one of those people that when I meet somebody or a brand, or the first time I work with a brand or whatever, like, just for example, just working with a brand, right? I know what goes through a brand's mindset, especially when they're working with somebody like me or somebody with a big audience or something like that. I understand. And I also understand how most of the people in this industry act. They're very entitled. They're very like, I'm not going to post a story and tag you unless you pay me. And, I understand that whole mindset. I'm the opposite. I will give first and watch how they react to it, and then we can have a conversation. But always know that I was the bigger person. Yeah. And I'm that way in real life as well.
So nice. I hope we're giving people a different perspective on like what real internet celebrities are like. Can I call you an internet celebrity?
You just call me a celebrity.
Yeah, I did. I thought you'd like that. I can't call you an influencer anymore. So can I call you a celebrity instead? This is a strange question.
Okay.
But it's a bit random. But for a lot of people, their main source of wealth or retirement savings is in their home. What's been your approach to having a secure financial future, being able to live the way that you do?
I don't really think about it that often. I'm really bad with, believe it or not, I'm really bad with personal finance. If I were to start a company tomorrow, I would definitely bring in somebody to like deal with the, all the finance issues. Like that's not my strong suit. So I don't know. My mindset is I'm going hard until the wheels fall off. There's no such thing as like retirement or I'm done or I'm finished, or I just sort of go, listen, my whole life was mapped out before. Everything was going to be a cop, was going to get married, have the 2.5 kids, a white picket fence, retire and die. Everything was mapped out and everything fell apart. Now I'm just going as hard as I can for as long as I can, and whatever happens, happens. If it continues like this, I'm fine. If it evolves into something else, I'm fine. Whatever. Like, honestly, when the pandemic came, it ruined this whole industry because it got so saturated with everybody's like, oh my God, now I just want to do, the whole travel influencer. I want to travel the world. I want to, you never know when it's going to end. So let's go all in. So now you're all saturated and the whole industry changed. But, I went to zero like everybody else and, figured out how to survive for that 7 months, year and a half, 2 years, however long, depends on what country you're in, lasted. And then the industry changed and pricing changed and rates changed and travels changed and whatever. So you just go with the flow and just go. Just keep going. I mean, you're going to get speed bumps. That's why you stay, my mindset is you always think like a startup, always. So you can stay nimble and go as fast as you can. But if you come up to a speed bump, you can make a left really quick or a right. You just never know. But whatever it is, you got to be able to do it.
How do you get over the speed bumps? What do you tell yourself? Do you just go, oh, that didn't really work, I'm going to do this? Or
no, honestly, I do that. I don't let it bother me. I don't take it personal, and I just do it. You always have to try and test. And I do that today. Listen, there's a Facebook post that I did like 2 hours ago, just saying it's a beautiful day on Deerfield Beach. And for just to switch it up to see how it does, I uploaded 2 horizontal pictures and 2 landscape pictures just to see. I'm always testing all the time. Instead of just 1 photo, maybe 4, maybe 5, maybe a video, maybe I'm always just playing around. You just never know. And people have no idea that it's a test or you're figuring it out. Like, people have no idea that it's business. But I look at everybody. I look at how quickly it is engaged with, how many comments I got, how many likes I got, how, do people share it? Do people send me DMs off of that? I look at everything, So, I mean, you just got to get out there and test. Like, you don't take it personally, even though it's your personal brand. You can't take it personally because at the end of the day, you're just a brand. I mean, my name is my brand, but yeah, it's a name, but it's just a brand. Like, nobody's going to love you as much as you think people are going to love you, and nobody's going to care as much as you think people are going to care. You just have to go. Just do it. Whatever. Like Nike says, just do it all day, every day.
I've just, you're so authentic, and you are who you are. And it kind of just seems like you just shrug things off. Is that just how you are, or did you have to learn?
Yeah, I mean, you learn over time, I mean, when big things happen when you're growing up, you learn pretty quick. People don't understand what you and I have went through when we were growing up, I mean, it's hard. I never had an adult conversation with my father. My last conversation, I just turned 18 like a few months ago, and when you're 18 years old in 1989, it's not 18 today. 18 today, you're very mature. I was a child at 18 in 1989. And my dad was like a wannabe redneck. So he used to take me all the time to the Everglades and go fishing every weekend. So our last conversation was the night before he died. And he was trying to get me to go fishing with him that weekend. And Dad didn't want to go. So we had sort of like a tiff, the argument. But that was our last conversation. I mean, I could let that haunt me and just bring me down every day of my life. But I had a wonderful childhood. So I concentrate on that. What people get upset about and what people stress about these days, they can't control. You can't control it. Like the pandemic, you have no control. When is the country gonna open up? You have no control. The weather, you have no control. Traffic, you have no control. So just do it. Just get out there and do it. Worry about things that you can control.
It does. I still get annoyed by minor things, but I try to rise above.
Yeah, I mean, listen, so do I. And it's uber important, even more important, who you should have in your circle around you. Because if you have negative people surrounding you, even though you've known them all your life, these negative people are going to drag you down on a daily basis. If you don't have positive, optimistic people that are either on the come up or they're up to your standards, and I do not mean money, I do not mean success, I mean way of thinking.
Yeah.
If you don't have that, man, you are screwed. You're going down with an anchor tied to your neck. You're going down that fast.
What are some ways people can bring a sense of adventure and discovery into their everyday routines without having to travel far?
You don't have to travel at all. Switch up what you do. If you don't like waking up early, Make a commitment that you're going to wake up early for a week, for a day, for 2 days. Just do it. Wake up an hour early and do a morning walk. Like, what's your downside? You're going to get an hour less of sleep? You think you're going to die? Humans aren't made that way. Like, get up an hour early, get up an hour and 10 minutes early, make a cup of coffee, be out of the door, and go walk around for a half hour. Like, break out of the routine that you're in every single day, unless your routine is working. And even if it is working, just switch it up. I'm fortunate that I can keep the same routine because I'm in different countries, different states all the time. So my routine always seems different, but I actually do the same thing every single day. I wake up, I do a morning walk, I fly my drone, I create content, I upload, I come back, I do calls, I send emails. Like, my days are the same.
It's interesting because for a lot of people, having an anchor is really important, like having a home or a place that they go back to. I kind of get the sense that hearing you say all of that, your routine is your home. That's how you feel home, by doing similar things wherever you are.
Very true. I never thought about it that way, but you're 100% right. Like, my routine is my home. So I'm the opposite of every travel person in the world. I travel very heavy. I travel two giant suitcases, and they're always either at or overweight because I take all my equipment, and so I'm in South Florida in between all my trips, but I would rather pack for 3 or 4 trips versus go back to my storage unit and swap it out every single time. That's a waste of time. So for my trip that I'm going to next week for Spain for the conference, and I come back for a week, and then I'm going back to Europe to do a river cruise, and I'm going to be in all over. I'm already packed for that trip. So I will keep the same stuff for the next 6 weeks. It's easy for me. But again, it's the same routine, I'm very simple, but complicated at the same time. Like most people in the travel world, they have a carry-on. They never check their bags. They're like, I can fit everything over here. I have four shirts and 4 bags, 4 pants and 2 pairs of shoes. Like, I wear size 13. My shoes are enormous. Like, I put them in a suitcase. My suitcase is overweight. Like, are you crazy? It can't be like everybody else. So I have to be like me. And this is another way, like, it's not only on social media. I don't follow what everybody does anywhere, whether it's real life, whether it's travel, whether it's social media. I don't care. I do what works for me.
I love that. I actually was one of those people that loved just having carry-on, but mainly because I'm small and I don't like carrying things around all the time. And then I now have all of my kit. And so all of my podcast and camera gear now is my entire carry-on. So now I either won't have clothes or I have to take another bag.
Yeah. I mean, I don't find it inconvenient at all. Like, I'm fine. It works. Chris is the same way. We both have. So when we travel, like our airport transfer is just 4 giant suitcases. He has a carry-on with all his camera gear. He has a backpack with all his because he carries like big cameras and big lenses and whatnot. So, I mean, it's hilarious. Sometimes they'll send a car to pick us up and I'm like, yeah, that's not going to work.
Okay. I have a few quick questions just around industry tips and tricks. Are there anything you can share around travel and hospitality and like how it's evolved in terms of like digital storytelling or in social?
The hospitality industry, social media in the hospitality industry, it's not just a trend. It's like the megaphone that turns whispers into roars. And in 2024, it's all about making connections. It's all about telling stories. It's all about giving guests a digital experience that complements the physical one. So, I still come across hotels and restaurants and cruise lines that are just the people handling the social media. It's not their full-time job. They have 15 other job responsibilities. Social media falls last, and you can tell they're not giving it importance. What always makes me giggle is when a country does a coup to take over the current leadership, right? Do you know the first thing that whoever is taking over doing the coup, do you know the first thing that they do? is they cut off all the social media and all the media digitally. So what you're telling me is social media is powerful enough to help take over an empire in a country, but not powerful enough to sell a hotel room or a dinner or a cruise. Like, it's astounding the way people think. It's unbelievable. A third of the world is on social media, but it's not important enough for you to provide a full-time job. It blows me away.
Like, every social media manager now cuts your video, sends it to their future boss, be like, you heard it here first.
And I got news for you. If you have a problem selling this to your boss, put me on the phone. I will sell it for you. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. You know, social media is not just complementing the hospitality experience. It's redefining it. If everybody was doing it right, I would have to figure out new services to provide. But I wish that was my problem, that I had to provide new services. But the way it's looking, I'm going to have a job for a long time.
So you're like, come on, guys. Scott's fine. Doesn't need to retire.
It's crazy. They're dinosaurs. And when I say dinosaur, I don't mean age. Because you can look at me and say I'm a dinosaur. When I say dinosaur, I mean it's a way you think. Like, it's 2024, guys. Like, wake up.
This whole conversation, stop being a dinosaur in mindset and social media.
Can you please make that the title? Stop being a dinosaur. It's 2024.
Balancing personal life and public persona. You don't really do that. You are who you are.
Yeah, there's no invisible wall. My public life and my private life is the same. The same. I have nothing against people that do, and I have loads of friends who are not as public as I am, and everybody has their own opinion, but for me, it's the same.
Hey, it's quite hard to stalk you if you're on a ship, right?
I mean, not now. Wi-Fi's gotten very, very good on cruise ships. Like, I do Zoom calls all the time. It's incredible how good Wi-Fi is on ships now.
Mental health and social media. It's a big topic online. What are your thoughts, and how do you, I don't know, stay healthy? And do you have any advice for other people? Are you susceptible?
I think everybody's susceptible. I really wish that I could show my background. Hold on, let me just I'm staying in this place, and I'm right on the Intercoastal, and there's $1 million yachts going by every 2 seconds. It's so funny. So
I mean, it looks beautiful.
Yeah, it's insane. So realistically, yes, I think it's super important. And I also feel that because my mindset is what it is, as far as keeping my circle tight, keeping my circle positive, keeping my circle uplifting and just with good, solid people. I think that helps me keep in a positive mindset. Also, I do a morning walk every morning for an hour or two. So, I mean, I'm out there. Yeah, I'm on calls sometimes. I'm flying my drone sometimes, but I'm doing something that makes me happy. I think most people do things, most people are in a job that they don't like. Most people are in a current situation in life that they don't like. And I think it's very, very important to find your zen. You know what I mean? And I think that you should schedule it. Just like when I meet people that aren't on social and they want to be on social and they know they need to be on social, and I mean more brands than humans, but and they're like, oh, I just don't have time. My day won't permit it. And I'm like, everybody has 15 minutes. Everybody has 15 minutes. If you don't have 15 minutes, start 15 minutes earlier and you have it. Set your alarm 3 times a day for 5 minutes. Take 5 minutes 3 times a day. Everybody has 15 minutes. Take 5 minutes 3 times a day and just sit in silence or play music or watch something that makes you smile or watch a video that whatever. It doesn't have to be in a yoga studio wearing yoga pants and zen all out. Do what makes you happy for 5 minutes. Everybody has 5 minutes 3 times a day.
And if you don't know what makes you happy, figure it out. It's the single most important thing in life.
I think that's a crock because I think everybody knows what makes her happy. They just won't say it publicly. Everybody knows what makes them happy. Come on. Go hug your kids. Go hug your kids. That makes every parent happy.
Stop being afraid of being happy and just go do it.
Just do it. They're afraid of what people might think, or they're afraid that the outcome won't be what it is, what it should be. They're just afraid. Just do it. You're not going to know if it doesn't work unless you try. Hello?
I think this has been an hour-long pep talk. I love it. If people aren't feeling positive after that, doing life wrong. Okay, quick fire questions. These are actually quick fire. What in your opinion is the most underrated fruit or vegetable?
Mango.
True. How do you like to have it? Just eat it?
Just, it's my favorite fruit. And when I got to Thailand and found out that it was their number one fruit, like my head exploded. So like, and I realized that there's like different varieties all over the world. It's awesome. Like I can eat mango all day, every day. Like it's the best.
Are you impartial to a trashy mango margarita?
No. Let's go. Let's go.
Speaking of favorite cocktail?
Something with rum. My mother's born in Jamaica, so I grew up drinking rum.
This one, cliche for you, but you got to answer it anyways. What's the most underrated travel destination you've been to?
I know Thailand's popular, but Bangkok is not nearly as popular as the islands are. I think people do not realize how wonderful Bangkok is, and they just go. They might spend a half a day, and then they fly down to the islands or up north to the mountains. But I think that Bangkok would surprise you.
We heard it here first. Scott Eddy, Bangkok tour 2025. Sign up in the comments. No.
Me and you are leading the tour.
What is your favorite travel gadget that you take with you always?
Drone.
Worst meal that your parents made you eat?
I didn't grow up a lot on American food because my mom cooked Lebanese and Caribbean. So I grew up eating like hummus and baba ganoush with jerk chicken, and like it was awesome. So I mean, I grew up very, very ethnic food centric.
Which is all the rage now.
Yeah. I love spice.
You were just ahead of the trend your whole life.
I love spice, and that only intensified when I moved to Thailand. I mean, my level of chilies went up one level every year.
Oh,
it was awesome.
Yep. It has to. Word that describes your life?
Word that describes my life? Free.
Very good word. What are you most proud of?
How I treat others who can't do anything for me.
Love that. This question is actually from Mike. So thank you, Mike. What is the most romantic destination you've been to?
Oh my God. So I will say the Maldives. So I've been twice or three times. I think three times. And, you know, I always go, like last time I had my photographer and his wife. And the time before I had two videographers, the time before I had two photographers. So it's definitely a romantic situation there, but it can be just as fun with friends. But it's definitely the most romantic place that I've ever been with friends.
Great. Fantastic.
It's the truth, though.
I guess two final questions. One is like, what's next for you? And I guess you're going to Spain, then you're going to do some more cruising. Is there anything you're investing in, or any, I don't know, personal growth that you're working on, anything like that?
I'm always looking to grow. Having said that, it's never planned. It all sorts of just has to happen. And I put myself in a position for it to happen a lot. So the more active I am on social, the more interesting people I meet. And I just want to keep being active. And if I could be twice as active as I am right now, I would. I really would. I really would, because I think being active on social has brought me everything that I have. And I want to do it more. It's not that I need more in my life, but I want different things to happen in business And that's the way they happen for me. That's the feeder to my business.
And what is the final thing you want people listening to this podcast to know?
Like I said before, if you ever meet me in real life, whenever and if ever that ever happens, and how I am on social, on any video that you see me post, I'm the exact same way in real life.
Touche, I can attest to it. So thank you so much, Scott, for sharing your incredible journey and insights with us. And I think just like overwhelming authenticity, to be yourself, go get the life that you want. And if you're not happy, just go do something about it. That's kind of what I've really heard, which is fantastic. Just really go get it. As always, it's a pleasure to connect with you. And we have so many things that we've shared: storytelling, travel, dead dads, unfortunately. But the life that we've shaped out of that is incredible. And I'm glad that we were brought together by social media. For our listeners eager to follow Scott's adventures, which there are plentiful, and many of them, I'll put all of his links in the show notes below. And if today's episode resonated with you and left you feeling inspired, I know I am, be sure to follow, rate, subscribe, send this to other fellow travelers. And our season is, I'm really doing a great job with this. Our season is brimming with diverse guests and delightful conversations, all contributing to our exploration of what it means to live a truly bountiful life. So thank you, everyone. And thank you, Scott.
Thank you for having me.